They walked into the dealership to buy a Rolls-Royce, but what happened next left them feeling like outsiders. Eugene and Marlene Bellamy, a couple celebrating their 53rd anniversary, had decided to treat themselves after years of hard work and raising a family. Eugene, tall but a bit stiff from age, turned to his wife as they pulled into the parking lot of Walters Auto Group in Orange, California. Their silver Lexus was old but still well kept, a symbol of their modest life. "Are you ready, baby?" Eugene asked, looking at Marlene. Marlene smiled, adjusting her pearl earrings. "Been ready since last night. Let's just look. We don't have to rush." This was their moment. Eugene had promised her a gift to celebrate their 50th anniversary, something beautiful and luxurious. A new car. Not just any car, but a Rolls-Royce, a dream that Marlene had never imagined would be within reach. As soon as they stepped inside the dealership, everything changed. Two salesmen glanced at them, then quickly looked away. One of them muttered something under his breath, and they both laughed. Eugene, always polite, nodded and said, "Good morning." But no one returned the greeting. Marlene noticed the lack of warmth as she clutched her purse tighter. In the showroom stood two stunning cars, a white Rolls-Royce Ghost, glowing like a star in the center of the room, and a black Cullinan with its sleek suicide doors open. But none of the beauty of the cars could soften the cold atmosphere that hung in the air. "Can we help you?" A young salesman, Ryan, spoke sharply, uninterested. Eugene, maintaining his calm, replied, "Yes, we're interested in possibly test driving one of the Rolls-Royces. Just looking for some information today." Ryan looked them up and down, his gaze lingering on their clothes. Eugene wore his favorite tan cardigan and dark slacks. Marlene wore a cream blouse with a delicate sunflower brooch. Simple, comfortable, and presentable. "Those cars start at $400,000, Ryan said, raising an eyebrow. Marlene nodded, unbothered. "We're aware," Ryan smirked. "Well, those kinds of cars are usually reserved for people who book appointments ahead of time, and most serious buyers go through the executive entrance. You might be more comfortable down the street at our used lot." Eugene, stunned by the dismissiveness, asked calmly, "Is that so?" Ryan didn't sense the growing tension. "Yeah, they have certified pre-owned Lexuses and BMWs there. Might be a better fit for you." The other salespeople weren't pretending to be busy anymore. One leaned back in his chair, arms folded, watching them with a smirk. Marlene squeezed Eugene's hand. "Let's go." "No, no," Ryan said, not moving from his spot. "You're welcome to stay, but I'm just saying it might save everyone time." They walked out in silence. No fuss, just the weight of what had happened sinking in. Eugene opened Marlene's door, but he lingered for a moment longer, staring at nothing. "You okay?" Marlene asked softly. "I'm fine," Eugene replied, but his voice carried the hurt he didn't express out loud. The drive home was quiet, and that feeling stayed with them, lingering in the air between them. At home, Eugene sat in his favorite chair, his cardigan still on, his hands resting on his knees. He hadn't said much since they got back. Marlene came out of the kitchen carrying two mugs of tea. She handed one to Eugene and sat down across from him. "Why did they do that?" she asked quietly. Eugene stared. "All right, thanks for telling me," Dorian said. "You okay?" "I'm good." "You sure, Pops?" "I'm real good," Eugene said, hanging up the phone. Marlene, knowing their son, turned to Eugene. "He's going to do something, isn't he?" Eugene sighed. "You know that boy." She smiled faintly. "Takes after you." Eugene chuckled. "Nah, he moves different. Quiet thunder." The next morning, the dealership had no idea what was coming. As the sun rose, the lot looked the same as the day before. Shiny cars lined up, the showroom floor gleaming, and salespeople sipping coffee, preparing for another easy day. They didn't know that Dorian, their son, was already on his way. At 9:43 a.m., a matte black Tesla Model X pulled into the lot. The soundless wheels spun as Dorian Bellamy stepped out. At 38, tall and focused, he was dressed simply in a hoodie and jeans. He was clean, quiet, and unassuming. Dorian walked straight through the front entrance, his eyes scanning the showroom. Ryan, one of the salespeople, barely looked up. "Can I help you?" Ryan asked dismissively. Dorian stopped and met his gaze. "You sell the Rolls-Royce Ghost here?" Ryan blinked. "Yeah, but like I told another guy yesterday, appointments are best. We usually require a pre-approval letter just to even sit in it." Dorian didn't flinch. "I'm not looking for financing." Ryan forced a half smile but said nothing. Another salesman, Dennis, approached. He was older and knew how to read the room better than Ryan. "Sir, is there something specific you're interested in?" Dennis asked. Dorian looked past both of them. "I'd like to buy 2 vehicles." No one had expected the storm that was about to hit. On a sunny morning, Eugene and Marlene Bellamy, feeling the weight of their 53 years together, drove to the Walters Auto Group in Orange, California, hoping to purchase a luxury vehicle. Eugene, with his tall frame and stiff knees, glanced over at Marlene, adjusting her pearl earrings. "You ready, baby?" he asked with a soft smile. Marlene, ever patient, replied, "Been ready since last night. Let's just look. No rush." They were celebrating their anniversary, and Eugene had promised Marlene that when they hit their 50th milestone, he'd buy her something that would make her feel as beautiful as she truly was. This wasn't just any car. They wanted something luxurious, something they had only dreamed of. But as soon as they entered the dealership, the atmosphere changed. It was like something shifted. The 2 salesmen inside gave them a quick glance, then quickly looked away, whispering to each other as if they were uninterested in their presence. Eugene, ever the gentleman, nodded and greeted them politely. "Good morning," but there was no reply. Marlene noticed the Rolls-Royce Ghost sitting beautifully in the showroom and the black Cullinan beside it, its suicide doors slightly ajar, as if inviting them into a dream. They approached a young salesman, Ryan, who barely looked at them. "Can we help you?" he asked, his tone dismissive. Eugene spoke up. "We're just looking to gather some information. We're interested in test driving one of the Rolls-Royces." Ryan's response was cold. "Just so you know, those cars start at $400,000. He glanced at their clothes, Eugene in his favorite tan cardigan and Marlene in a simple cream blouse. "Most serious buyers book appointments," Ryan continued, "and they usually come through our executive entrance. You might be more comfortable at the used lot down the street. They have certified pre-owned Lexus and BMWs." The words hit hard. Marlene tightened her grip on her purse, and Eugene's face grew still. He stared at Ryan for a long moment, then calmly replied, "Is that so?" Ryan, oblivious to the weight of Eugene's words, nodded. "Yeah, they've got some good deals over there." The other employees, no longer pretending to be busy, watched them with amused expressions. Eugene turned to Marlene, his face reflecting a mix of frustration and quiet restraint. "Let's go," he said. Marlene nodded, and they walked out, not a word spoken between them. The silence in the car was heavy. Eugene opened Marlene's door but lingered for a moment, his hand resting on it as if he was still processing the experience. "You okay?" Marlene asked softly. Eugene nodded, but his mind was miles away. The dealership, the dismissiveness, it all felt like a weight they hadn't expected. Later that day, back at their home in Fullerton, Eugene sat in his favorite chair, staring blankly at the tea in his hands. The house was quiet, the faint smell of vanilla and old books in the air. Marlene joined him, offering him a mug of tea. "Why did they treat us like that?" she asked. Eugene sighed deeply, his voice steady but filled with years of understanding. "They saw what they wanted to see. It didn't matter who we were, didn't care who we had been. He paused, his voice almost a whisper. I've been black longer than I've been retired. I know how this goes. Marlene frowned. Do you think if we'd been wearing suits and heels, it would have been different? Eugene chuckled softly. Maybe, but maybe not. Some people just don't see you. He shook his head. I don't want to buy from them anymore. And I don't think you do either. Marlene agreed. Their son Dorian had been listening in on the call. He was always there when they needed him. You're going to do something, aren't you? Marlene asked, already knowing the answer. Eugene sighed. You know that boy, he said with a half smile. He moves different. The next morning, Dorian pulled up to the dealership in a sleek black Tesla Model X. He wasn't flashy, just calm and focused, but he knew exactly what he was about to do. Inside, Ryan barely looked up. Dorian walked in, his presence cutting through the air. You sell the Rolls-Royce Ghost here? He asked, his voice calm but firm. Ryan, still dismissive, replied, Yeah, but you'll need an appointment and pre-approval. Dorian didn't flinch. I'm not looking for financing, he said. Ryan tried to brush him off again, but another salesman, Dennis, stepped in. Sir, can I help you with something specific? Dorian looked past them, his gaze steady. I'd like to buy both the Ghost and the Cullinan. Dennis blinked. We have both in stock, but do you want to see them first? Dorian didn't hesitate. Yes, I want both, and I'm paying cash. The mention of cash stopped them all in their tracks. Managers peeked out, and Ryan's face turned pale. Are you serious? Dorian simply smiled. Dead serious. They walked him through the showroom, showing him the cars, but Dorian said little. He didn't need to. When they finally sat down to complete the paperwork, Dorian turned to Dennis. Yesterday, my parents came here. A couple of older black people, my mom in a blouse, my dad in a cardigan. They were polite, respectful, and you treated them like they didn't belong. Dorian's voice was steady but powerful. They've worked hard all their lives. My dad worked 40 years at the same company. My mom ran the house, the church pantry, the whole neighborhood, and the way they were treated here was disgraceful. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but Dorian stopped him with a glance. I came here today because my parents raised me to be better than what they were given. I'll still buy these cars, but you'll never see me again. Dorian signed the papers with one swift motion. When those cars pull into my parents' driveway tonight, the whole neighborhood will know what you missed out on. He stood up, leaving them with words that lingered. You should think long and hard about how many people like my parents you've turned away without ever knowing who they were. The atmosphere in the dealership shifted. Ryan stood frozen, still trying to process what had just happened. Dennis turned to the manager, Mr. Halperin, who had been watching silently. Did he really just buy 2 Rolls-Royces? Ryan asked, still in disbelief. Halperin nodded slowly. You should have treated them like people, not like charity cases. At 6:08 p.m., the 2 Rolls-Royces, one in glacier white and the other in obsidian black, were delivered to Eugene and Marlene's home. Their neighbors watched quietly, whispering among themselves. Dorian arrived behind the delivery trucks with a smile. Happy anniversary, he said. Marlene's eyes filled with surprise and love. Boy, what in the world? She asked as she hugged him tightly. Dorian grinned. I told you I was good, he said, as Eugene stood, shaking his head in disbelief. Son, this is too much. Dorian smiled. No, it's not enough. They should have treated you like royalty. Eugene ran his hand along the hood of the Ghost. This the same one from yesterday? He asked with a laugh. Across the street, the neighbors stood in silence, taking in the scene. But the Bellamys weren't smiling because of the cars. They were smiling because, for once, they didn't have to prove their worth to anyone. Later that evening, after the excitement had died down, Eugene and Dorian sat on the porch. Marlene was inside calling her sister. So you really paid cash? Eugene asked, still processing the shock. Dorian nodded. Didn't flinch. Signed it like a rent check. Eugene chuckled. You always were dramatic. Dorian laughed. Had to be. I've watched you walk away from disrespect your whole life, never saying a word. You taught me discipline. Eugene nodded slowly. There's a time for fire, and there's a time to let silence humiliate people better than shouting ever could. Dorian took a deep breath. The guy at the dealership, Ryan, he was bold because he thought he could be. He judged you based on what he saw, on the surface. But sometimes silence speaks louder than any words could. The next morning, Eugene pulled up to the gas station in the Ghost. A young boy pumping gas stared in awe. Is that yours? He asked. What do you do? Eugene chuckled. Retired, worked hard, raised a good son. The kid nodded, impressed. Respect, sir, he said as Eugene climbed back into the car. The door shut softly, a quiet confirmation that Eugene didn't need the roar of an engine to make an impression. A few days later, Eugene received a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten apology from Ryan. I was wrong. You deserve better, it read. Eugene passed it to Marlene, who read it quietly and then placed it in a drawer. Keep it? Eugene asked. Marlene nodded. It's not for us, she said. It's for him. That evening, Dorian called. They laughed and joked, but Dorian's words stayed with Eugene. I didn't buy those cars to show off, Pop. I bought them because I wanted the world to see who you really are. Eugene smiled softly. We've always been who we are. The world just took too long to see it. The next day, as the Cullinan gleamed under the streetlights, a young boy across the street pointed to the cars. Can regular people drive cars like that? He asked his mother. She smiled as she looked at the Bellamy's home. Those aren't regular people, she said. They're the kind of folks who made the world better just by being in it. And that was the real luxury, being seen, being heard, and being treated like you matter. Next day, as the Cullinan gleamed under the streetlights, a young boy across the street. Can regular people? He asked his mother. Looked at the Bellamy's home. Those aren't regular being in it. And that was the real luxury, being seen, being heard, and being treated like you matter. Next day, as the Cullinan gleamed under the streetlights, looked at the Bellamy's home. Those aren't regular being in it. Being seen, matter. Looked at the Bellamy's home. Those aren't regular being in it. Being seen, looked at the Bellamy's home. Those aren't regular being in it. Being seen, being seen, being seen,